Today is the first official day of Regulation G, even though a lot of us have been playing it for almost a month already. Now, we're going back to the tier list today, guys, okay? And I did an initial tier list when Regulation G was first announced on the restricted Pokemon, and I think I was incredibly wrong on a lot of those Pokemon. So today, basically, we're going to update that tier list as we now have played a bunch more games in Regulation G, myself including. I think I'm almost near 1,000 now, prepping for Indianapolis Regionals. However, let's just jump right into things here. We've got Koraidon, and this Pokemon is good. It is a solid pick. This is a strong option. You get to go Collision Course. You basically are an Incineroar delete button, and that feels really good. You are the better Sunsetter. That is what we've discovered over the last few months, and you just kind of seemingly keep winning tournaments, and just all in all don't really have that many bad matchups. Like, yes, Fluttermane sneezes on it, but interestingly enough, the Fluttermane usage has gone down drastically. So Koraidon, solid pick. You cannot go wrong picking Koraidon. Miraidon's weird. It is somewhere between work a little harder and work a lot harder. I think because it's going to be work a little harder. It still has enough of an auto win button with Electro Drift if teams aren't ready for it that I do think it's probably still strong enough. However, I do think it's waiting for that secondary restricted, right? When you can use the electric terrain to not only boost yourself, but to prevent your second restricted from going to sleep, it would be so much better. But since this is Regulation G and you only get one restricted, you do have to work a little bit harder for it to actually function. But all in all, it's still a pretty strong pick overall, I would say. Pretty much anything in like anything above Content Mod is very usable, just in case anybody was wondering what my definition of a usable legendary is in this format. Terapagos, once again, another solid pick. It's definitely not the best Pokemon in the world. It has some serious flaws. It plays a little linear. However, once again, I think there's going to be top players that find ways to make this Pokemon less linear and know their lines really well, that will be able to capitalize on this Pokemon. It is incredible. It is naturally strong because it is one of the few natural answers to Calyrex Shadow Rider, which is obviously going to be in the best of the best category here. Spoiler alert in case you were wondering. But either way, Terapagos, pretty strong. It does get a lot of lines going. You're kind of playing that protect the queen strategy. Really strong option. Not my style, but definitely a strong option. Mewtwo, it's going to be box 32 or a content mod. I'm going to throw it in box 32, guys. I don't even know if it is a content mod at this point. At this point, it is just like incredibly outclassed. It has not aged well as the formats and as the years have gone on. It desperately needs a buff if Game Freak wants to give it that. But you know what? Mewtwo, box 32, it's not getting out of there. Lugia, it's either going to be in work a lot harder or a content mod. Now, I feel like it's somewhere in between. I'm going to put it in work a lot harder because I have seen it have a little bit of success. Just mainly because the flying stab is very valuable to have. And same with the Ho-Oh, right? Ho-Oh is going to be in work a little harder. But for both of these Pokemon, it's that flying stab coverage that is just so nice, and it breaks like the Incins, the Rillabooms, right? The Lugia doesn't quite break the Incin, but it's not like Incin's hurting it. Incin doesn't run attack stat. Lugia walls that out, right? Ho-Oh absolutely just kind of sits in front of the Incin there. You pair it with a clear amulet. You get Brave Bird, you break the Rillabooms, you break the Amoonguss, right? You've got a very strong special defense that I think you have options on both of these Pokemon, and that flying coverage is very nice in the meta right now. Kyogre, this one I'm a little torn on. It is somewhere between work a little harder and a solid pick. It is either the bottom of the solid tier pick or the top of the work a little harder pick. I'm going to go back in and try to make sure some of these are like aligned within their tiers at the end of the tier list. But for right now, I'm going to put it at the top of works a little harder. It is a very borderline Pokemon to be close to a solid pick. I think the main problem with the Kyogre is you have to work a little harder because the Pokemon that beat you aren't just other restricteds anymore, right? You are losing to non-restricteds now into Raging Bolt and the Rillaboom. Not that Rillaboom is anything new. However, I think you do have to work a tad bit harder, but it is still a very strong option to perform well. I probably should move Ho-Oh down, or maybe just knock it down to like leave it. Make sure I leave it at the bottom here, but that's besides the point. Groudon, I'm gonna go work a lot harder. Whoop. But I'm gonna put it above Lugia. And the concept of being above Lugia here is it's probably at the top of the work a lot harder tier list. It is naturally and historically a good Pokemon. Okay? It has stats, it does a lot, but the problem is, and I think I saw this somewhere, I genuinely do not remember where I saw this, but basically It was Groudon hits the field, takes 60%, misses the Precipice Blades, and proceeds to go down to next turn, right? And that like sums up Groudon perfectly, right? You can take a lot of hits, and you pressure a lot back with the Precipice Blades if you hit the Precipice Blades. And I think because of that, and since you have a better Sunsetter option now anyways, you just might as well have the better Sunsetter, right? Like, I feel like maybe Works a Lot Harder is wrong. Maybe I should be putting this in like an outclassed category. However, I do think there's something there. I mean, it's never going to be a bad mod. It's a Groudon. Rayquaza is going to be at the very top of Work a Lot Harder. Actually, no, it's above Ho. What am I talking about? It's above Ho. It is Work a Little Harder. It has to be above Ho. If my guideline is that Ho is that high, Rayquaza has to be just slightly higher than it. Once again, that flying coverage is incredible. You get the Swords Dance up. You get Clear Amulet now. You get to basically be a little bit of a Dragonite, but like a Dragonite at home. And if you build this properly, you do get a very, very nice abilities. You get chances to Swords Dance, you get the Pollen Puff, you get to go Terra Normal, E-Speeds at +2, and Dragon Ascent, we've all talked about that flying coverage already. You have openings here, and I think that's where it shines over Dragonite, because, I mean, on that first tier list, I called it a Dragonite at home. I said there's no real reason to run Rayquaza, but I think I found that reason now, and that is having that flying coverage is just so good. Right, you do get a little bit of a higher attack stat. You get Clear Amulet, so you can't get intimidated anyways. So having that higher attack stat, you get more damage output. I don't think it's the best restricted, but I think it has potential in the metagame if you are using it properly. I think both Dialgas are content Pokemon right now. I think as much as I like that design of the regular Dialga, it just doesn't do enough right now, okay? Currently a content Pokemon, it is cool. It does some damage when you want it to, but that's pretty much all it gets at. There are better steel type restricteds for you. There's better non-restricted dragon type for your team than these two pieces right now. It's cool, it's fun, but that's pretty much where it ends. I mean, granted, could you win tournaments? Could you win a game with it? I don't know if it's ever going to win a tournament, but you're going to see it get a result here or there, I'm sure, right? Someone's going to come up with like this anti-meta Dialga team, I'm sure. Same with Palkia, guys. I am going to rate Palkia a tad bit higher just based on natural typing. And that's mainly because I think Palkia's typing is disgusting. Water Dragon has always historically been a good typing. Once again, with Palkia, though, you get the issue of, I need to hit my moves right now. And you can't always hit your moves, and that becomes incredibly scary. So we're gonna run with that. Same with the Giratina, man. We're really trash talking the Sinnoh legendaries, eh? We really just called all of the Sinnoh legendaries content Pokemon. You hate to see it, but you know they are content Pokemon. They're just not quite at the level where I can see them ever making it through an event on top. Right? I don't think I see Lugia making it through an event on top. Maybe it's a content Pokemon as well. But once again, I think Lugia has a little bit more going for it than some of these other content only Pokemon, or what I'm referring to as content Pokemon. Reshiram, I'm going to go with Work a Lot Harder. It is definitely at the bottom of this tier list, somewhere probably right beside Lugia. I don't think it's going to win an event, but I do think there's a chance that it can maybe do something as the meta develops. I don't love it in the meta right now, but it is still technically naturally a good mod, right? If you're going up against a Koraidon, you can take advantage of its sun. If you're going up against a Terapagos, your Turbo Blaze ignores the Terra Shell, right? You have some cool options for you. You do resist the Electro Drift, which is pretty nice. And once again, you're just a big dragon. All right, it's pretty good. Zekrom's going in box 32. It is completely outclassed by a Raging Bolt or a Miraidon. There's no reason to use this piece right here. It's funny, sure. It technically could be a content Pokemon, but it's a box 32 for me. Kyurem White. And Kyurem White's a really weird one. I want to say it is somewhere either bottom Works a Lot Harder or like top of Work a Lot Harder. I'm going to put it in top of Work a Lot Harder. I just think you have to commit so much to sending Blizzard in this format that it's not worth it. We now have massive setters of Sun with Koraidon, Rain with Kyogre, even Rain with Pelipper. Don't forget about Pelipper being everywhere in the metagame right now. That's another point, right? There's a lot of different ways to set the weather and remove your ability to just spam Blizzard, which isn't amazing. There's a lot of wide guard going around. However, I think if you can find the team and you can put in the work to get a team where you're going to get Weather up onto the field and you're going to find a way to get the speed control for Kyurem, I think it has potential. But I do think you're working a little bit harder for that to happen. Kyurem Black is going to be a content mon. Kyurem White's going to be box 32. Kyurem Regular is going to be box 32. Nothing too crazy right there, guys. Kyurem itself has always just been bad. And Kyurem Black has maybe a niche with, like, whether it's going to be a loaded dice or a clear amulet. But that is for content. It doesn't make it through a regional run. I mean, maybe you see one out of all the regionals we have in like a day 2. But, like, I can't see it making it farther than that. Cosmog, box 32. Cosmoem, box 32. Solgaleo, I'm going to put it at the bottom of Work a Lot Harder. It doesn't have a lot going on for it right now. The psychic typing doesn't do it any favors. The one thing I like about Solgaleo in this metagame is it's pretty much the only physical restricted I don't need to run a clear amulet on to really see full success. So you actually, in a sense, get an item, whereas the other restricted don't. Right, because like something with like a Koraidon, it really appreciates the clear amulet. The Groudon appreciates the clear amulet. The Calyrex Ice appreciates the clear amulet. Right, so you actually get to hold an item on this piece, which I think is something that's to be noted. But I don't think it makes it good enough. Right, like I said, psychic typing just kind of brings it back down. Not a lot going on. Like, you do have the nice ability that basically is the clear amulet, not being allowed to get your stats lowered, which is very, very strong. But other than that, I mean, that's the best you got going for you. It kind of is a middling Pokemon. You're gonna have to work for it. Lunala as well is probably somewhere in here beside the Groudon. Whether or not I like it above or below that's up for debate. Once again, Lunala is one of those Pokemon that is simply sitting here waiting for the next restricted format where we have 2 restricted Pokemon. It is a very strong option. It can hit hard when it needs to hit hard, but it is at its best when it's able to click Wide Guard on its it's able to click Wide Guard. It's able to have a Trick Room option, right? And when you're consisting of your one restricted having Wide Guard and Trick Room, it feels a little bit too supportive for your restricted slot. Granted, it is still a very good Pokemon. You can find ways to win with it. I think there are some cool teams floating around out there. But for right now, I think you are going to have to work a little bit harder, or a lot harder technically, just to keep my consistent wording. But then you really would want to here. Now, Duskmane is a weird one, because it's not that I don't believe in Duskmane and I think it should be a content Pokemon, but I also don't know if it's good enough to continue to put in like a Work a Lot Harder. You get some cool concepts. I'm going to leave it as a content Pokemon for now. Same with the Dawnwings. No, I changed my mind. I do think there's chances for all 3 of these with the Solgaleo as well, but it's one of those ones where you get the Prism Armor ability, and having Prism Armor is naturally a really strong ability. You can flip your type chart so that your Prism Armor becomes more and more effective, which is really, really good. Like a Fairy type with Prism Armor sounds pretty good to me, right? You can kind of set up, you can now hold an item. Necrozma Duskmane's biggest weakness was the ability to get Intimidate cycled, so holding that clear amulet now is very, very cool for it, very, very strong. The question is it enough? Is it worth it over any of the other ones? And that's technically no, but you do have, if you can technically win with it, I think, if you put into work. I think there's chances for this Pokemon to go crazy right now. Necrozma gonna go garbage tier. Zacian, it is somewhere at the top of Work a Lot Harder, or the bottom of Work a Little Harder for me. I'm gonna believe in it because I still, for whatever reason, believe in the dog. It probably should be top of Work a Lot Harder, but I don't think it deserves to be. I don't know. I don't know if it deserves to be up here right now. It's a decent mon. The problem is the instant cycle gets you consistently, and that's the biggest issue. Before, like, the instant cycle wasn't a big problem for it, right? Because, like, you were base 170, you could just switch it back in, you'd get your attack stat. That nerf really did hurt it. It does prevent you from playing it the way you want to pilot it, and it makes it a little more ugly. However, I don't know if I want to keep it up here or bring it down one, but I don't know if it's above. It's probably somewhere with Ho-Oh. Like, if you get in the right matchups, both of these Pokemon are doing really, really well, right? Like, if you get Ho-Oh into the correct matchup spread, you're cooking. If you get Ho-Oh into the bad matchup spread, you're crying a little bit, right? So I feel the same, similar with Zacian. If you get Zacian into what is a decent matchup spread for it, you can kind of cook a little bit. But if you get Zacian in a bad matchup spreads, it's gonna be a very rough time. It's gonna be one sad dog, right? So other Zacian, I'm gonna leave it in the content mod. It's probably fun for content. It could be box 32. Once again, any of these mons down here, these categories basically might as well be the same. I don't see them winning events. I don't see them making an impact on the meta right now. But you can have fun with them, right? If you're just looking to play for the fun, you can have fun with them. Zami is gonna be a solid pick, 100%. Whether or not it's above or below Terapagos, that is completely up for discussion. I'll talk about that, like I said, at the end. Regular Zami's going down here. But basically, back to Zamazenta, body press is disgusting. Okay? Body press is incredibly, incredibly strong right now. You get an immediate defense boost on switching. You don't really care about intimidates. Your biggest concern is like those Terra Ghost Will-O-Whispers or the Calyrex Shadow. But overall, I mean, Zamazenta is a very strong option in this meta, and I never thought I'd see the day where I tier listed Zamazenta above Zacian, but here we are. Even Eternatus is probably going up here somewhere. I'm going to put it right at right around the Kyogre area for now. I'll probably move it in a bit, but the concept with Eternatus is it actually does a very good job, once again, of beating everything that's not a legendary. And then it beats some of the legendaries as well, right? So it does a very good job of dealing with those Rillabooms, dealing with those Amoonguses, dealing with the Incineroars, right? Like, the Incineroars don't scare you, okay? They can parting shot you down, but if you're sitting there with Cosmic Power, maybe you run Taunt, you do play a little bit of a slower game with the Eternatus, of course, but I do think it's a very strong option still. You do have to work a little harder than you would like to say with than any of the big top 5 restricteds, but I do still think there's a niche for it, especially on a well-built team for it. Like, you pair this thing with a Wo-Chen, and all of a sudden you're kind of unkillable, right? You get some Cosmic Powers up, Wo-Chen, Pollen Puffs. You can do the same thing with Amoonguss, right? You're fast, you have ability to set your defenses up, and I think because of that, there's opportunities for it. Calyrex Ice is going to be the solid pick. It is at the top of the solid picks. It is the second best Pokemon in the format. The only reason it is not considered the best of the best is because you have to take one extra turn sometimes to make sure you're getting the full effect on it, right? And I think because of that, it's not quite at the same level as Calyrex Shadow, where it is the best of the best. And the concept here, and what I'm getting at, is both of these Pokemon are disgusting. They are broken. They are incredibly, incredibly good. However, if it comes to an end game, and I have a 2 HP Calyrex Shadow and I have a 2 HP Calyrex Ice, right? If I come to an end game at the end of the turn, if we get out of Trick Room, I lose the game, right? But generally speaking, I think it's a little easier to get Calyrex Shadow into the positions where it just goes crazy, right? Like, you don't need to take a turn to set Trick Room to really pull out the sweep. So I think that's why Cali Ice is a little bit lower. But regardless, you don't necessarily need to have Trick Room for this Pokemon to do good, but I think it really appreciates that. So I am going to keep it a little lower. It is still very close to the best. It is definitely the top of the solid pick tier. And then regular Calyrex is just going to go in box 32. But I'm going to quickly just double check. I want to make sure I'm not crazy here. I do want to see. Okay, so Calyrex is the best by far. This tier looks pretty close. I'm going to try and order these tiers, but this is pretty top of the list. This, in my opinion, would be my top 5 right now, which is just Cali, Koraidon, and then somewhere between Zamazenta and Terapagos. That one's a little bit more up in the air. I don't know which way I would really lean towards on which one being better right now. I am a little bit more inclined to say Terapagos is a tad bit better because it matches up better into the Cali Shadow, but overall I don't think it's a big difference over there. I think these two are pretty close in where they're at. This tier list is a little bit more, this section is a little bit more wild. I don't know how much I really want to order this. I do think Kyogre is definitely at the top of that. I feel like Miraidon probably passes Eternatus as well, just because it has a little bit more going for it. And once again, I'm going to do it this way, I'm going to base this on kind of the order that we've seen them, like how many we've seen of them. It should probably be this as well. But These four I think are pretty interchangeable. I think if you get the right matchups for those four, they're going to go crazy. If you get the wrong matchups for those four, you are going to cry a little bit, right? What I like about the Zacian, right, is you have, if you run Sacred Sword, you get to hit through the defense boost over there. You get to hit Terrapago super effectively. You get to hit Koraidon with a Play Rough. Just pretty much eliminate it from the board. You get to hit Calyrex with the Behemoth Blade, right? You have a lot of options to hit a lot of the top options with the Zacian, right? Now, granted, they kind of hit you back, which is scary, but it does feel like a little bit of a pretty balanced Pokemon outside of that Intimidate cycle. But overall, like, I think these four are pretty interchangeable is what I'm trying to say. Down here, I was initially going to tier this list, but I think I have it pretty close to what I'd want it to be. I think these three right here, the Lunala, Groudon, Kyurem, are once again pretty interchangeable on those three. Overall, after that, I mean, these ones pretty fall off pretty hard. Once again, you can probably give or take them, but like still winnable. As I mentioned before, guys, anything on Work a Lot Harder and up can probably be justified to bring to a regional if you feel like you've got the right team for it. Once again, though, just like I said, like the category says, you are going to have to work a little bit harder. I'm not going to bother talking about the content or the box 32 ones anymore. We're going to wrap that up there. But with that, if you guys do enjoy this type of content, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe. It really does help out the channel. But with that, we are going to get on out of here. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will catch you all in a future video.